for
Oh,
having
oh, hang on. Oh,
Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities. And it's going to be really an amazing experience. And I look forward to you joining me on the job.
good morning, everybody. I mean, really good morning. It's one of our early Mental Health Today episodes, a little 8 o'clock here on the Central Time Zone. So, if you're watching this on the West Coast, you're up and early and you should be getting off LinkedIn and off Facebook and get to work. Good morning, everybody. It's Ken. My name's Ken Stearns. I'm the host of Mental Health Today, and really excited today to bring an interesting guest. And I think, quite lucky, Brandon. I really appreciate you coming on the show. You've got an amazing business, and a chance to hear from somebody who's, I think you're like at the crossroads in a lot of ways of part of the industry. You're seeing, everybody that comes and goes out of roles and changes roles, and the people coming in, people leaving the business. You've probably got a good pulse on that, as well as a couple of other things. So our next guest, Brandon, has got his business in the search business, really, of healthcare and around mental health. Brandon, welcome to the show. Thanks for being a guest. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, what the company's all about?
Well, thank you, Ken, for having me on such a wonderful day. It's
Yeah,
we're having wonderful weather here in Philadelphia.
same here, Kansas.
Okay, a little bit far from us, right? Not too too far. So yeah, we're seeing an amazing, unprecedented amount of demand for mental health therapists across the country, nationwide, since the pandemic started. So here at Gotham Enterprises, we are a online job site platform for mental health, the mental health and healthcare industry. Companies use our platform to complete all of their hiring, fill all of their positions in the mental health and healthcare spaces. We've been in business since 2015 and really taken off these past 3 years since the pandemic. I'll tell you something, a key change in our business since the pandemic. 90% of our business, of our company, before the pandemic was healthcare, not
Okay.
not not mental health.
I did not realize that. It was
Yes,
all, holy cow.
90% was healthcare. So your internal medicine, your
Yeah,
pediatrician,
yeah.
cardiology, surgery, some psychiatry as well.
Okay.
Now that dynamic has flipped since the pandemic. Now it's 90% mental health, 10% healthcare.
Whoa.
And that's just because of the unprecedented demand since the pandemic for mental health.
I'm sorry, Brandon, did you make an intentional effort to slide into that space, or is this just a tsunami that kind of washed ashore?
So in the beginning, it was actually a question of survival during the pandemic when everything was closed. I'll tell you something. I never thought that healthcare, during any kind of recession or shutdown, that healthcare would be affected.
Yeah.
But it was during the start of the pandemic because of the lockdown. So
Yep.
surgeries, elective surgeries couldn't be scheduled. And then anything that was not COVID related was put on hold. Cancer, heart, cardiology offices. So many of our clients and our customers had to furlough 75% of their staff in the beginning of the pandemic. So
Interesting.
I tell people that healthcare as a whole is recession proof but it's not pandemic proof. So what we had to do to survive during the pandemic was we had
Okay.
to switch over to something that you can do via telehealth, and mental health just fit like a glove.
Wow. And you had all the infrastructure, so you would just
Yeah.
flip a switch. You just flip the switch.
Yes, exactly. So what I was saying, I said to people, some people were telling me during the pandemic that we would see a baby boom, and during the pandemic, during the lockdown, I said I think we're going to see a divorce boom
Yeah.
during the lockdown, because the first time that couples actually got to know each other
I
it was during the lockdown, because I can't tell you how many people were telling me that they only saw their wife or husband 2 hours of the day when they would come home from work.
yeah.
And then the pandemic happens, and then they realize, oh my goodness, who is this person? I don't actually like that person. So it's actually
especially under stress, right?
under
You're
stress.
also under duress, right? So
They were under so much stress, financial stress in the beginning of
yeah.
the pandemic. They were, because no one knew, it was an unknown, right? No one knew what was going to happen. And then schools were canceled, daycares were closed, right? And so everyone was in the house 24/7. So when you have that, you put that in a pressure cooker, it causes people to either sink or swim, that type of environment. So we found that a lot of people's mental health went off the wall during the pandemic. They really needed someone to speak to, especially the loneliness during the pandemic.
It really increased, right? The
Isolation
isolation.
kills.
Isolation's brutal.
It's brutal. So, that's why you started to see in the middle of the pandemic, people start to take hikes and walks around a lake or state parks, right? These state parks existed before the pandemic, because people wanted to get out and see other people, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
we answered that demand by focusing on mental health, switching up during the pandemic, and we never looked back. And now we have some exciting things to say, but what's been happening since that's begun. For
what improvements did you make? What changes? What's happening now with the business? How are you
So
leveraging this? Because the waves crashed. You've kind of settled into this business, right? You've got a model now. What are you seeing in the industry? What's happening? What are the changes now?
So it's been a revolution for the mental health industry. Before the pandemic, being in the mental health industry as a clinician was one of the lowest paying professions in all of healthcare.
Which is also probably why you didn't really strive to place people, right? Because
No, Ken, no company was coming to a recruiting agency or a headhunting firm, search firm, asking for search services to place a therapist.
Wasn't even a business. Yeah, interesting.
Because there was no money in it.
There was no
money in it. Insurance companies weren't paying enough. So it was a trickle down effect that when insurance companies started to increase the reimbursement rates, and companies started to invest in mental health, that's when we saw salaries explode from $50,000-$60,000 a year in New York City, for example, going up to 100,000 plus today. Exactly. And then the amount of customers, the caseload for mental health has quadrupled. So we're continuing to see mental health be destigmatized because of this.
This is fantastic, right? The part of it, people are now openly talking about it. It's a regular conversation. People are comfortable to have it and sharing.
You can actually become a mental health therapist, take care of the community, treat your clients while also being able to make a living to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Before, it was a vow of poverty. It was almost
It
like
really was
career.
social. It was social work
It
before.
was social work. So we're starting to see now, even at the universities where we're recruiting from, they're receiving a huge uptick in applications of
Yeah, what's a demographic 24 months ago for therapists, and what's the demographic now? Or what's it the intake versus what the current pool?
completely different. Now programs are actually becoming much more competitive because of the surge in applications. And
Oh,
uh,
interesting.
before the pandemic, no one even had mental health in their vocabulary.
You would not want to be a therapist.
Exactly. They used to say, "Oh, be a mental health counselor. What's that?" Or deal with crazy people. Now, now it's actually a career that's very desirable. So you have a lot of people who would have been, you know, going to law school, going
Yeah.
to nursing school, going to be a teacher, actually saying, "You know what? I think I want to be a therapist today."
Yeah, I think the nurses and teachers are probably a good draw, a pool, a similar type of person, right? That would choose now
Yes.
mental health because, and also you get to work from home. If you join a certain clinic, you might not
Mhm.
have to see people in person.
You
You can
absolutely the
clinics are virtual. I've interviewed a few people who are running virtual clinics. They don't. All the therapists are in their homes.
Ken, that's precisely that. If you told someone before the pandemic of that I would work remotely, you heard a slight chuckle in the background because
Oh,
they
I would have laughed at you. I would have laughed at you, not even chuckle. I would have laughed directly at, like, that's not work and you're
they,
joking.
they would think that I was saying that as code word for unemployed.
Yeah.
He's in between jobs. Oh, he's working from
Oh
home.
yeah, he's working from home
Yes.
on his garden.
Now you can't even get people. Fast forward 3 years. Now you can't even get people to come back into the office. Companies are thinking about how fast they can get out of their leases as fast as possible.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the cities will feel it. It
Cities
is
are.
interesting. I was sharing with you the some of the ladies I've talked to, people who were in this vow of service in the mental health service, and then the pandemic came, and it was kind of funny because one of the women had a few therapists, and and they were like, oh, we don't like really, we want to stay in the office. They're doing therapy out of the office, and the pandemic came, and she was basically saying, I had two or three therapists, and we were struggling, like really struggling. And now everybody's from home and big smile on her face. They're not struggling. She's got like 8 therapists and they're all working from home and they're all busy and they're all making, and she's happy. You can see it's not somebody from 2 years ago.
Ken, they
Or
have a wait list now, often a 3 to 6 month wait list. Before the pandemic, they couldn't even have enough. They didn't even have enough clients
a full day. Yeah, a full day.
to fill up their caseload, their days worth of appointments. Now they don't have enough time to see therapists until 3 months, 6 months later.
How do
See
we,
clients later, yeah.
is this an overblown concern, or is it real? And if it's real, how do we fix this legislation, where therapists can only perform work or service in their state that they're licensed, and there's no real cross country or cross state, there's no real framework yet. I know there's some discussions around it, but is it a real issue? And if it is, what's going on with that? How do we
Yes.
get more therapists licensed? If you're licensed in California, New York, probably Pennsylvania, Florida, there's probably 10 states where you should be able to practice everywhere. Like, the bar is high enough.
I agree. So there is a current bill pending, and I think there's 18 or 21 states that have already signed on, pledged to
Okay.
enact this legislature to allow therapists to practice nationwide with one license. So there is a pending bill for that, and it looks like it's gaining traction but we shall see, right? But this is very important for rural communities and states with smaller
Yes.
populations. The metros
Yes.
don't really have an issue with this.
Right.
Like LA, New York City, Philly, Miami, there's plenty of therapists. But if you're talking about, Oklahoma somewhere, in rural Oklahoma, North Dakota, South Dakota, the interior of the country, or northern New England.
I'm here. I'm in Kansas. I promise you, Kansas is not. Kansas doesn't have 25% even enough.
There's a huge shortage of clinicians and doctors and medical professionals as a whole. That's why I know people who live in northern New England and they have to travel 6 hours away to go to Boston or Hartford, Connecticut, because they don't have access to care at specialist doctors and healthcare professionals like us in big metros.
That's crazy, right?
I think it's crazy. So I was reading this study that your zip code is the biggest driver or indicator of your life expectancy. Your zip code, access to care, the infrastructure around it.
The infrastructure and the quality, quality.
Access to good food, access to resources.
Also, right. Clean water, good water, right.
It's your zip code.
I mean, you think about it, right? If you live right on top of a highway, if you live right, in the runway of an airport, and you're out in the countryside. Interesting.
Ken, I live 20 minutes from one of the largest, most renowned hospitals in the world, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and they have medical tourists that come all over the world for care. And I'm living 20 minutes away. I couldn't imagine being hours away from care, from access like that. But also how this will help mental health as a whole, letting therapists become licensed in multiple states. It's going to help further destigmatize mental health because they can continue to see clients via the convenience of their home, via telehealth. Yes. Many communities, many areas around the country, just the mere fact of you being seen visiting an office for mental health could give you a scarlet letter in your community. Can affect your employment opportunities, affect your family's reputation around town. With telehealth, you don't have any of that. So expanding the base of the number of clinicians nationwide is going to help further destigmatize that, because the people who would be more self-conscious asking for care, getting care,
right,
they can do that at the privacy of their home.
Yeah. And I mean, look, you can also, Brandon, you can try 3 or 4 therapists very easily and find a best fit, right? You can
exactly.
You can.
It's really compatible.
Imagine if there is the therapist in town.
I'll tell you,
that's a thing. That'll be a thing in a lot of communities.
Hey, that's a thing. Like even in the state of New Mexico, it's a true fact, Ken. There's such a shortage of healthcare professionals that the state of New Mexico has allowed psychologists to prescribe medication because there's such a shortage of psychiatrists and nurse practitioners. Yes.
Whoa. Not even a doctor.
No, it is.
They're still a doctor.
They're a PhD, but they're not a medical doctor.
Yeah, they're not a medical. That's what I mean. They're not a medical doctor.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay.
And that's because of the shortages of the healthcare community in the country.
Of the healthcare.
Yes. Can you believe
that? And that's
that?
That's even healthcare. We're not talking about mental health. We're talking about healthcare.
Healthcare as a whole, yes. And, so we see that just from having our our job site, nationwide, and we see where the pain points are. And I would say we're at less than 30% of our need threshold for filling our basic need for mental health clinicians in the country.
So, wow. So there's, I mean, what is that number? Do you know, can you do the back of a napkin? How many people is that? How many people do we need?
I'll tell you, I think there's about a million. There's about 1 million clinicians.
So we need 2 million more, at least.
At least. And as mental health continues to be stigmatized and normalized, and as a country we become more acclimated to talking about our mental health, that demand and need is only going to increase. Ken, before the pandemic, everything, the tell-all of filling the need for mental health was always geared towards medications. We're finally talking about the need and use of counseling, of therapy, talk therapy.
Yes.
Before the pandemic, it was all like, let me go run to my psychiatrist and let me refill my prescription.
Yes.
Now therapists are finally getting involved in the discussion that no, it's medication is not the only tell-all. Therapy is powerful. We shouldn't just look at medication as the one size fits all solution for mental health patients.
Yeah, I just recently started listening to some of these really old. I'm not sure if we talked about this in our pre-chat, but I started listening to some really original old 1930s, 40s, even 50s, kind of not philosophers, but business people, like original motivational speakers, if you will. And these are people who did a lot of study around the mind. They actually did, some of these early, kind of motivational people. They were really scientists, right? They did a lot of studying and they did a lot of research. And one of the gentlemen I was listening to was saying they reserved something like 30 or 40% of the hospital beds back then for patients who just had worry. They were they had concerns.
Yes.
They had mental. So they didn't call it mental health. They didn't call it an illness because they weren't ill. They were just people who had so much worry, so many concerns that they were sick, that they needed to lay down, talk to people and get better, get their head straight, get a pick me up, have some conversations and get back out into life. They needed to come off the playing field. But they had hospitals. And you went there because you didn't feel good about yourself. You were ill.
Exactly.
Amazing. And that's all gone.
Exactly. So, but we're starting to see now a return back to taking mental health more seriously.
Yes.
There's a lot of individuals who I'm speaking to who are thinking about building psychiatric inpatient facilities, psych hospitals.
Yeah.
But the big difference is our attitude towards it has changed. Before it was like, okay, send them away and that's it. I don't want, not my problem.
Yeah. Big high fence up on the hill. Put them over there.
Exactly. So now we have, I think, if it was up to me, if I had to give some suggestions, I think every individual should be taking a mental health wellness visit every year.
What does that look like?
Well, you know how you go for your annual physical every year?
Yeah.
I think we should include the mental health component, a mental health evaluation in that, because there's clear, concise evidence in medicine and in science that shows how our mind, the brain, affects our body, our physical health.
Absolutely.
If, like, for example, anxiety, how it would affect your blood pressure, stress, cortisol levels, how it would affect your blood pressure, your even your cholesterol, your cardiovascular health. It all has a place in your overall medical.
I think so much of the medical field is basically set up to treat mental illness as the consequence, the onset of it, in hypertension, heart attack, probably cancer. And we think we talked a little bit, this cellular level. I mean, stress, cortisone, this stuff affects you at the cellular level.
Stress
And
kills.
long enough, it will kill you.
Yes, it
will kill you.
It will kill you. It can even change your DNA to mutate, the cells to mutate. It's a truth.
I've lived on cortisone, slept 5.5 hours a night. Mm-hmm. That was it. And later I found out, 8 hours is actually what you're supposed to be sleeping. But I could sleep 5.5 hours a night, and I was on rocket fuel 24/7. I lived like that for several years. It's possible. It's a real thing. And that would have changed. If I kept going, I would be a different person. No doubt.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing here at Gotham. We're trying to continue to bring this into the spotlight of why mental health is so important. We've created our own blog here at Gotham.
How do people find you, and what would services can you provide for people, maybe somebody listening, how do they get involved?
So it's very simple. So we have different divisions, different services. So so Gotham Enterprises is similar to like an Indeed or ZipRecruiter, but specifically for mental health and healthcare. So if you're looking for a job opportunity, come onto our site, take a look at thousands of different jobs that we have listed nationwide. Hundreds of companies post their jobs on our site every week. And it's not only for mental health, but it's for healthcare as a whole, but it is dominated by mental health just because of the demand that I was talking about earlier. And if you're an employer who's looking to hire any mental health professionals or healthcare professionals, post your jobs on our site, access our resume database, find your next hire, your next employee, to fill the needs of your company. We also have a blog to let people continue to normalize the conversation of mental health. So check out our blog on our website, same site that's listed up over here. And we're also launching launching a online chat forum.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this.
Yes, this year that for the public who have common issues, life issues of someone who may be going through divorces and wants to connect with other people of that community. They'll soon be able to connect with those individuals on our site, and help each other as a community. We also will have guest therapists, mental health therapists, on our site on our own podcast in the next month or so. But the spin on it is we're going to let the therapist answer the public's questions where they can call in about a certain issue.
That's so cool.
And then last but not least, later this year, we'll be launching a booking app for mental health therapists that your clients, your patients can schedule their appointments with you just from our app. Through our app. So you'll get a lot of clients, patients that way through Gotham, and we'll let you know about that launch.
You're going to go start to do the retail side and feed it back into the therapist. Interesting. Yes. Wow. Yes. So a good reason to join the firm. To get into the ecosystem.
Yes, Ken, I told you I was not going to be your typical guest.
Yeah, no, that's super. Yeah, and it's reminding me I have to get my I have to get the Jar Foundation site up, my website up. I've just kind of leaning on the jar.live, but the site will have, for example, would link to partners like you guys and just link and have a link to your site and, Gotham, and then show what, here's the things you're doing. Here's the stuff. Go check out what they're doing. I'm super interested in this nationwide bill. I don't know if you know much about it or if you know anybody that's driving it, or who I should call or who I can talk to.
So the associations and the state associations are backing it, like the the NASW, and then their own state chapters. And what I can do for you, Ken, I can send you an email, follow-up email with some of those resources so you can look at it. This affects us here at Gotham, our recruitment division, because if a company in Wyoming, a hospital in Wyoming says they need a dozen mental health therapists, it will take us today 6 months to a year to find someone who's licensed in Wyoming.
Yeah, where are you going to find anybody?
Exactly, because Wyoming has more cattle than people.
Oh, man. That's a real thing.
It's a real thing, right?
Probably 10x.
Right? You're not that. You're closer to Wyoming than I am.
I did a cow concert in Wyoming.
Okay, so
from my Airbnb, I had some cows outside in the pasture, and I played my guitar, and they all came up to the fence and hung out.
So you can relate.
We'll play the cow concert on the way out on our little exit. I got my cow concert up. So if you're listening, you're going to miss the cow concert. If you're watching, you're going to enjoy it.
Another thing, Ken, that I will say that's really exciting in the field, the use of psychedelics
What do you know about that? And how are you doing anything in there? Tell us about what you know.
All I know is therapists as a whole are really excited about its promising treatment for especially depression, OCD, anxiety. And that is also in the works, pending legislature. It's starting to gain traction with, especially coming out of Colorado and Oregon. They're usually on the forefront for that. But all I can tell you is they're really excited about using that as a treatment option for their patients, for their clients, therapists. But it's not effective yet.
Yeah, I've had two guests. I've had two guests on different versions. One is one of the things that seems to be coming on the heels of that legislation are going to become the tour guides, the tour companies. And what I mean by that is people who help, once you find the person who can supply the medicine, you need a safe place and a safe person to do the therapy.
Yes.
And so there's people who are helping find those clinicians to sit with you and help do the guiding. Before the wild, I'm sure at some point it'll be the wild west, but right now there are some high-end services where they're going to make sure you're guided and well taken care of.
Yeah, right now just to give you an analogy, the psychedelic field is for therapy is at the stage of where cannabis industry was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Agreed.
So we're not there yet. But Ken, I really had a good time talking to you today. I'd love to continue the conversation with you. Maybe we set something up 3 months from now, or
I think so. I think this is one of the chats that I think we need to, like you said, every few months. And I actually also think you're reminding me of one of the things I want to do, which is get some to get kind of a panel together. And just get a particular conversation going for a month, a theme in 1 month, and bring on maybe 4 guests like yourself that I've had on that I know that would contribute kind of different angles to particular themes. So I'm continue letting that cook, and I think this just chatting with you, I was reminded, I need to get that together. I need to think what that looks like.
Well, you know where to find me.
I,
I'd love to do that with you, and I'd love for you to come on to our show as well. Our
yeah,
podcast is going to launch in about a month from now.
absolutely, absolutely. Brandon, thanks so much, and I'm gonna see you on the other side.
Okay.
I got the cow concert queued up. It's a little long, so I apologize to anybody that hangs out. Um, Thanks again, Brandon, for being a guest and just really, I mean, interesting stuff going on. And this stuff around the state licensing, I think we should get involved and maybe kind of work together, find out a little bit more. It's good for your business too. I
Sure.
mean, if that as soon as that opens up, that's a whole nother man. That's wild west for you. It'll be
Oh,
it'll be it'll be crazy when that law gets passed.
absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks everybody for listening and supporting the Mental Health Today show. I think another great piece to the puzzle, part of the fabric, is today's conversation and learning, what it looked like before pandemic, what it looks like now, and really the future looks really good. Thanks again, Brandon.
Bye-bye now.
Hey, everybody. It's cow time, cow concerts. They've been out in the field all day, running around, having fun, and now they're here for a little entertainment. Well, it's night 2 here in Sundance, and like last night, I should say last night I kind of had to play, but tonight the cows have been just all in this field back there the whole day. And I just looked out my window and they were over here, and here they are. Concert's over.